I've got some SARK calls that I'm currently holding from last week. So
Yeah,
should be
that's
interesting to see.
that's been popping.
Yeah, should be interesting to see. We actually are going to do a space later today with the founder with Tuttle Capital.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. All right, let me just put this out. Join. What's up, Matt?
What's up, guys? Good morning, Richard, Gav. What are you watching on Netflix today or yesterday?
Oh, I've been trying out Longmire. I really enjoy it. I don't know if you've seen that.
I
It's kind of a Western. Yeah,
yeah, I didn't see it
Western.
yet, but I did see it on there. It looks good.
Yeah, I'm really liking it. It's fun.
All right, I just put out the tweet. I see stock market news is here. Go ahead and get him up here as co-host. And yeah, that's about half of our panel. I know that we should have a couple of other people that will be popping in, but we're probably going to get started sooner than later. I just put out a tweet just letting people know that we are live. I don't think we have too much competition right now for spaces. I think a lot of people just maybe are taking a look at crypto and are bailing on spaces for the morning. But don't worry, guys, because we're going to talk both sides. And whoa, crypto is dropping really, really hard as you're speaking. So I think we should just go ahead and get started. It's 8:22 a.m. I just put out a tweet. If anybody could share that tweet, that would be awesome. If you're in the crowd and you can share that tweet, that would be huge. I'm going to go ahead and pin that into the space, and we will get rolling. All right, turning it over to my co-host, Stock Market News, to kick us off with the news from the weekend. I think he's up here. Oh, he might be getting the other account on. Um, while we're waiting for Evan to kick in, Bitcoin is about to break below 40K. It is $10 off of it. So I'd say once it breaks 40K, that's not super promising. Uh, we're probably going to have somebody come in, maybe do a little bit of technical analysis on some of these cryptos, but it looks like there's Evan. All you, Evan.
Yeah, my bad, man. I was just kind of doing some things before. I had to get freed up. I'm just logging back onto the computer now. Uh, as always, the Mondays tend to be pretty busy with a decent bit of news coming out. There was a little bit of sprinkling of stuff over the weekend as well. I think the biggest story that really caught my eye today, at least the most game-changing one, will be Take-Two acquiring Zynga. So those are both video game companies. Take-Two makes games like GTA. They own brands like Rockstar and other things like that. And Zynga makes popular games like Candy Crush and kind of other areas like that. So Take-Two agreed to acquire Zynga for about $9.86 per share. And that gives it a valuation right around 12.7 billion. I know Zynga was up a lot this morning. It's up about 49.5%. So, but what I am looking at right now is Zynga's trading right around $8.97, $8.98, $9, and the buy price that is rumored here is $9.86. So there is still a little bit of premium there that's possible. Obviously, the risk of the deal falling through and not happening looks like your downside is about 90 cents, but the upside is about 90 cents as well. Well, the downside is probably a lot more. The upside is 90 cents. My bad than that. One of the bigger stories from over the weekend, which came out, we got some more numbers about how Spider-Man No Way Home is doing at the box office. It is now the sixth highest grossing film in the U.S. of all time. It has brought in a total of $668.8 million at the U.S. box office. It is just about $10 million behind Avengers Infinity War and about $31 million behind Black Panther. It got about $33 million at the box office this past weekend, so Friday through Sunday, which just passed. So there's still a little bit steam left in this one. It looks like it might come in and settle in the third spot right behind Avengers Endgame and Star Wars The Force Awakens. 1 second, I need to take a sip of water, and then I'm going to come right back. All right, much better on that. So a couple more stories that broke this morning. We have Lululemon come out with preliminary Q4 numbers. Basically, their EPS and revenue are both going to be at the lower end of their projected range, but still in the range of the given ones. I saw Lululemon was up a little bit on that. Ford sent a letter to its dealers warning them not to upsell reservations of the F-150 Lightning. So last week and a little bit past, there were some emails and stuff floating around the internet talking about Ford dealers that were upping the price of F-150s for the people who wanted to get the reservations first. There was one that was like they want to charge them an extra $30,000 to get the F-150s, the launch edition or whatever. So Ford didn't like that. They said it didn't constitute well with the brand, so they wanted to stop that. They did say that they do support having customers sign a new type of contract, preventing them from reselling the car within a year. So that would be very interesting if that ended up happening. There was a report from the Wall Street Journal talking about Microsoft possibly losing a decent chunk of their augmented reality team. So the reports that are around has lost around 100 people in the last year. That's of an augmented reality division that's around 1,700 people. So it's it's not a huge percentage. It's not like it's 40%, but it's a decent chunk of the people. And the article specifically said that many of them were leaving to go to Facebook or Meta, which changed its name to Metaverse. It makes a little bit of sense that people who want to work there who think that is the future. Seems like Facebook is much more going all in than some of these other companies. We have Tilray that reported earnings this morning. We are right on the cusp of earnings season. I would say it starts in full swing next week, but we have JP Morgan reporting on Friday. We have Citi on Friday as well. We have Delta on Thursday. So we're getting right back. I actually believe we have Taiwan Semiconductor, which is a huge one as well, on Thursday, if I'm not wrong. So we're getting right back into the swing of earnings season. Next week, we are fully back in it. We have a couple price upgrades here and there, which we won't touch into. Tilray reported earnings. They had EPS of $0 and 0 cents, which beat expectations of -9 cents. And then they reported revenue of $155.15 million, which missed expectations, of $170.5 million. Fubo TV, ticker FUBO, also said this morning that they expect their Q4 revenue to come in between $250 million and $220 million, which would bring their full year revenue in around $622 million to $627 million. And then they said they expect to have more than 1.1 million paid subscribers as of the end of 2021. The stock is down about 1.57% so far, so not too much of a move there. With that, I'll throw it back to Gav. We got about 2 minutes till the market's open, but yeah, I think we'll talk about that section.
Sounds good. Yeah, ready to get rolling. A lot of people are definitely expecting some blood in the water today. Just taking a look at futures real quick. So give me just a second. I got to pull that up. Looks like my Wi-Fi is a little bit slower this morning, unfortunately. Okay. Dow Jones futures down 0.25. S&P futures down 0.67. Stock 600 down 0.76. Crude oil is down. The 10-year is down, and the euro is down. So pretty much everything is actually down today. So we're looking at a lot of chaos. Doesn't mean there couldn't be a rebound, but it does look like we're breaking through a couple of key levels. We talked about this on Friday when it came to QQQ, specifically the NASDAQ having basically its worst week in, I think it was 9 months. It now just fell below its anchored VWAP from recent lows. It fell below its 50-day moving average, its 100-day moving average, and it's got room down into the mid-360s where there's more of a volume legend, a 200-day moving average. So could be a little bit problematic there. Going to be continuing to scan the flow, but we'll have to see what happens. The only position that I'm literally going to really be talking too much about today right now off the bat is that I do have SARK calls, which are the counter to ARKK, basically a short of ARKK. So we'll see what happens with those. Would be nice to see if Bitcoin and Ethereum, once we hit market open now, rebound to over 3K and 40K, but not a ton of hope. Looks like a growth is taking a hit just right off the bat. Celsius down 7% right here at open. Tesla down 2.69%, and a lot of other things are moving. So those SARK calls are already up 28%. We'll see what happens with those. I'm going to turn over to Richard. Would love to hear what you're looking at the bell.
Yeah, sorry about that. Had to find the unmute button. Yeah, first of all, the market isn't right for my environment as of this moment. So I'm not trading today. I'm just waiting for setups and group themes to emerge. One group theme I am watching is the EV plays and also just kind of auto manufacturers, Ford, GM, Lucid, Tesla, those type of names. But right now, we've only really got, I don't know, a handful of names working. And for me, the big money is made, and I make a lot of progress in my account when these setups are everywhere, when everything is kind of pointed upwards, when we're trending nicely. And right now, that's just not really the case. We're just kind of chopping around and in a downtrend on the indexes. We're breaking new lows here on the NASDAQ today. The S&P 500 definitely a little bit stronger here. But I'm just kind of watching and waiting for my spots. The semiconductors is another group that was potentially leading, but now took a hit last week. The data storage group, MU, SIMO, those are holding up a little bit better. But like I said, I'm not really interested in trying to play just kind of individual names when the overall groups and the overall market isn't at my back and we don't have that kind of prevailing wind that kind of scoops everybody up. And I don't want to swim against the current, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I don't want to force things when the market environment isn't right. So I'm just kind of taking a step back, stalking things, and waiting for signs of the environment changing. And what that looks like for me is basically when we start to see decoupling from the indexes from the major growth stocks. And what I mean by that is, like, on a day like today, if we're down 1% on the NASDAQ, but all the growth stocks maybe go down 1% initially or 3% initially, but then have a really strong recovery into the end of the day, and you see volume come in, and you just kind of see the institutions step in and support those stocks at a key level, even when the overall index still is showing a lot of distribution. So when that happens and we have decoupling for a few different days, that can mark the beginning of a potential new uptrend. If we then get that confirmation with the indexes, then all the growth stocks will continue to do well and fall through. But right now, we haven't seen that too much. And like I said, there's only a handful of leadership groups or even potential leadership groups, the EV stocks, the semis, definitely a lot weaker. And even the EVs right now are not doing great. Let me bring up Lucid, which is acting well into last week. Looks like we had a gap down and it's rallying strongly. So yeah, this is a name I'm definitely interested in. It's on my focus list. But like I said, until the deck is hot and all the probabilities are really with me, I'm going to take a step back, focus on reading books, basically listening to podcasts, and trying to improve my trading in other ways, and trying to avoid just all this chop. And right now, a lot of my watch list still just very red, seeing a lot of distribution. But if I do see those signs of decoupling and start to find those stocks showing relative strength, that's really my focus. Keep up with my routines and make sure I'm ready whenever the tide really does change and we restart the uptrend.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. From everything that I'm seeing, and I'm in like 20 paid Discords, not that I pay for them, but I'm looking in here, everybody is just caution, tight stop losses, stay on top of this. That is just what everybody is saying. I'm looking at, people getting in and out, like they're just scalping. I'm just, watching right now, seeing if we get a potential reversal here. And then I'm kind of, wondering if it can flip the opposite way as well, which we'll see. But yeah, these SARK calls are up about 66% right now. So we'll see if those do continue. It's kind of a lose-lose situation because that means that the growth stuff is falling. But just continuing to take a look. All right, Matt, what are you watching?
Yeah, all signs going off. Today, market's coming down really, really, really hard. I'm watching it from the sidelines, keeping all my cash in my pocket. Today, we have a key level, 462.5 on SPY, opening, gapping down, and all signs are negative. This could be a crash day today, ladies and gentlemen. I've just talked in my own stream about this, being very careful. We're likely to have a volatility explosion that's going to cause the market to liquidate further. This can be something that is very, very, very bad, and I'm scooping up nothing today. I'm going to sit on cash, let the market do its thing. I'm not scaring people, and I'm not chasing shorts, but these are all signs are bad kind of thing. Tech has been murdered out the door. The gap down on Apple is substantial, over 1% gap down. Even my shining beacons, financials, energy, not doing so hot. Oil futures coming down a little bit, so I'm very, 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 very careful today. The downside target of S&P, at least for this week, I'm looking for 455 SPY, maybe 456.5 to close out some of those gaps from previous couple of weeks. But losing 462.5 right out the door is nuking monthly options that expire on January 21st of this month, and happening within 2 minutes of market open is not a good sign for the rest of the day. So I'm not picking shorts. I don't like to trade in volatility. It's very hard to manage a short, but I'm looking at all things coming down today. I'm going to be very careful that the VIX itself doesn't create another second round of explosion today for volatility to create more downside. So be very careful today, everybody. Very careful. No picks.
Yeah. I heard you say about cash this week on our call the other day.
Yes, sir. Last
definitely
night.
Could end up being the pick. It's really hard to see where this is going. Also, Danny, I see you in the crowd, and TSTR, I dropped you both some invites. My pick for the week was FAS, which started this morning green, up 1.5%, and has now pulled back to up basically nothing. Oh, let me take a look real quick at call flow. No alerts really just yet on call flow, except for Zynga. That's what Evan was talking about there. ZNGA. That was the one where we talked about how there was an acquisition. They are up 46%. I'm just taking a look real quick at the call flow on ZNGA. So call flow on ZNGA here, we're looking at, what is this, the $6.50 calls people are kind of piling into. Yeah, good money coming in on the 6.5, January 14th, January 21st. So people are looking for perhaps another run here. I wouldn't jump in on something with 46% in these market conditions, but to each their own. Okay, Gerg, what's going on, man? What are you up to today?
Yeah, what's up? New week, same old caddy, right? Docky, new 52-week low. ARKW, new 52-week low. Then you have Zoom, new low. Square, new low. ARK, the ARKK, new 52-week low. So pretty good morning. But
especially
other
if
than
you're
that,
holding SARK calls.
Yeah, especially if you're long SARK, right? And with SARK, we have a space at 6 p.m. So I hope ARK stays down for the day, right? Like imagine SARK is down 10% on the day we do a space. It won't be good, right? So ARK
No,
should be up.
today could be
Yeah.
like today could be like their best day ever. Could be the perfect day to have them on.
Yep. No, I think So ARK so far is down 3%. But I think, right, this is just a morning flush, so it might bounce back before we might even know about that. So, but for me, right, I'm almost all in that strategy I was talking about, the buying these no risk plays and shorting the calls on that. So for me, my count is flat because with that there has been no calls bought and sold so far for the day. But other than that, I'm buying nothing. Even though right, my Palantir, my biggest position before, it just hit the new low. And I think it might even go to $12-13. If you're a short-term guy, it might not be for you. If you like Palantir for long-term, this might be a good time to scoop up some shares. In the last 2 months, the ownership is up 100% by the institutions. And we should talk about Lucid. So Lucid, in 9 days, has a big unlock coming. So 70% of the shares of Lucid were logged and all of them go live, right? So all of the previous investors, they had to wait 180 days after the business combination. That happened back in July. So there was also a pipe unlock that happened on the 1st of September. And the 2 weeks leading up to that, stock fell over 50%. And on the day alone, pre-market, the stock was down 30%. And this lockup is almost 600% bigger than the first one, right? Because the previous one was 150 or 160 million shares, and this is 1.1 billion shares. But with that, right, there's a bit of a dilemma too, because the Saudi Public Investment Fund, they own almost 63% of the company, but they want to build a factory in Saudi Arabia, right? So I think they maintain the 51% ownership, but even with that, they have to dispose 120 million and up to 140 million shares. And if you use the 10% that they rule, they will be selling for almost a month now, right? Because you see these institutions, they don't want to be more than the 10% of daily volume. And for the last 3 months, the daily average volume is 75 million, and if you use the rule of 10%, that gives you 24 business days. So it could take over a month. But the good thing about this is the PIF, they own more than 10%, right? So when you own more than 10%, you usually have to file a plan with the SEC. How do you want to sell that? And whenever they do that, we should know about that in the 72 hours leading up to that. So that's a plus sign. But looking at what Lucid did before, going short and trading the momentum and buy it back right before the shares go live might be a good trade, right? Because the only problem with that is I will make a thread about that almost, and everyone will know about that, right? So it might be a bit too crowded. So one more thing I'm looking at is Beyond Meat, BYND. They did announce some small partnerships last week, but if you look at the short interest rate, it's 42%. Even though I don't like the company fundamentally, the short side is way too crowded. I might take the opposite bet, right? If they have any good news, any big news, any good beats, I might take the long side just for the short term. Even though Beyond Meat is still way overvalued, it's like a food company trading at SaaS and tech multiples. That shouldn't happen. But the short side is way too crowded, and I wouldn't want to be caught with those guys. So BYND Beyond Meat too.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, it sounds like that SPAC strategy is probably the move here.
But yeah, with
With a
SPAC, right?
mhm.
You might not make 100% moves in a week, but your portfolio won't be down more than 0.5% in a month.
Yeah, it's pretty fair. No, I
Have
want
you
to take
tried
these
that
big
finally
hits.
though? Or will you do this week?
The SPAC strategy,
Yep.
I could try it this week.
So the Feb ones was netting you 8% with no leverage and no downside. So and most of the brokers, right, you can easily lever up 2 or 3x. So that's almost a 16% or a 22% return. And I think almost nothing in the market can offer you that, right? So
Very difficult to get that type of guaranteed return anywhere for sure.
yep.
Um, okay. So looks like as of market open right now, we have SPY down 1.08%. The Qs are down. There could be a small bounce. Not really happening. I sold one of my contracts for a small gain. On SARK, probably should have held it a little bit longer.
Yeah,
I'm
Wolf,
definitely,
are we
yeah.
bringing back the trade of the week by bullish strippers?
I don't know, Evan. Are we? It's kind of we're gonna have a bullish ripper space today during Power Hour. That might be the more apt time to do it.
Yeah, there were some cool concepts that we had with Ripper. Some things changed the back end, but we pulled a little bit Uno switch card, and we're kind of back to where we were before. So maybe a trade of the week does make sense. I know we've kind of got like a crew that comes on here every single time. We kind of were talking about maybe ways we could change the trade of the week a little bit, but we'll be in contact with you. I think there's some cool things we could do.
Yeah, making moves. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. So we had this initial kind of
Yo,
flush.
GM is down 10
hmm
fucking percent.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. AMC is also down 6%. I mean, all of growth actually is just taking a hit right now. The largest down I see is Celsius. Somebody picked that actually to go short. Um, in that in that call yesterday, CELH broke through every major. Oh my God! Look at for anybody that's listening, just look at sometimes when things break through their 200 day in bad market conditions, it can just get real bad. Take a look at CELH breaking through its 200 day at $73, $72 and falling straight, literally zero green days straight down to $48 per share. There really can be some fast moves. Other stuff I see crowd still falling. Tesla's down 4.5% now on the day, so still falling. SE tried to rebound last week. SE did. Not too successfully, down to 182. A lot of people were looking at that under 200. AMD down about 4%, Square down about 4%. So yeah, I mean, our panel up here is not super like hitting on downplays typically, but this is kind of what we're left with. So Richard, it sounds like you're still probably holding back right now. Are there any areas of the market that you're seeing strength in that you are going after?
Yeah, I'm not trading today. Waiting for that environment, but I am noting some strength. Lucid holding up really well, holding 40 on the lows today. Has pulled back from highs for sure, but it's holding around that anchor VWAP from the highs of the base. SIMO in the computer data storage group also acting well. It had pulled back and kind of drifted down on lower volume, and now is just kind of forming a tight day above the anchor VWAP from the breakout on 12.7. Ford is also a name I'm watching, holding up pretty well, holding yesterday's lows. Anything holding yesterday's lows at this point is showing strength, in my opinion. And also just bringing up MU holding up pretty well. It is below yesterday's lows, but it's holding the anchor view up from the earnings gap up on 12.21. So there's some small pockets of strength. But yeah, like you said, we're seeing a lot of destruction in some names, especially names like CLH, which have really been in a downtrend, really since early November of last year. And like you said, lost a 200-day, really accelerated to the downside. And it's worth noting that even though it was holding up and trying to form a structure above the 200-day in early, basically January here, we also had a declining 50-day moving average. So anytime a stock is below a declining 50-day moving average, in my opinion, it's suspect, and it's just kind of worth waiting for really things to resolve itself and for it to really prove itself before taking on a trade in a name like that.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, it looks like the market just had a little bit of a jump back. I'm going to assume this was a move back up in crypto. Yeah. So Bitcoin just retook 40K pretty suddenly. If anybody's looking at this Bitcoin chart, this looks like it dropped to like 39-ish, and just immediately there was buying pressure that came in. Could have been some, yeah, wow. Just look at that. Look at that move. It's like a 1,000. That shit is crazy. We live in some wild times, not going to lie. So crypto just had a little bit of a move back upwards. Everything, Ethereum retook 3,000 for about a second. It's trying to hold it. If crypto can move back upwards, there could be some activity within the miners. I'm not going to lean too heavily into any miners just yet. I definitely, want to take the time. Looking at some other tech, PLTR is down to $15.72. Gerg, what do we do in PLTR here?
I think if you're a short-term guy, don't buy it. It might go $12-13. But if you're a long-term guy, scoop some shares up.
Got to scoop the shares. Okay. Keeping my eye on PLTR. SoFi as well, down to $13.13. Shit is falling.
So far, $10.
Yeah. If you're looking at one of these, I think just, you're hearing everyone's recommendations. Look at the charts, because sometimes you'll think about this and look at, SoFi. Like, wow, SoFi 13. I want to scoop some dips, whatever it is.
Rivian is down 7% now. Finally.
So I would say just reminder of what someone like Brian Shannon would say, which is just stay away from the downtrends. If a stock has had 4, 5, 6 red days in a row, there is no major support level that is sitting on top of. There's no volume that's sitting on top of. I really, at this point, again, we just mentioned, if you're a long-term investor and that name is something where you're slapping the fundamentals, you love it, you're passionate about it, that's one thing. But if you're looking at this for short-term, I'm meaning 1 to 2 years even, that, because that's not necessarily super long-term. Do not buy in these downtrends. You're not going to catch the falling knife.
This year, don't buy a single falling knife and try to catch the bottom. I posted this last week, right? Because even last year, the runners ran and the stocks that were selling off hit new lows. So, makes no sense to fight the trend, right? Careful the market gives you. So, Apple. Exactly. Apple was hitting new highs every single week. You could have bought whenever Apple broke a new high, you could have bought that, traded off that, then made money. But if you were buying a dip on the stocks hitting new 52-week lows after earnings, your portfolio would be hitting new lows every single day. So don't fight the trend ever.
Watching call flow, there's still bullish calls that are coming in way out of the money on Zynga now. I see money now coming in on $9 strikes. Is ZNGA, has that been moving since we talked about that announcement? Not
Yeah,
really.
it did dump a lot at open. If you look at the volume, right? So at open, let
Yeah.
me check how many shares were dumped. So 36 million shares were dumped at open, but the volume is there, right? Because if the
Yep.
buyout has any credibility, they're still making 2.3, 2.4%. Because the buyout is consisted at 9.86%, if I'm not, no, $9.86, right? If I'm not wrong. And so
Yeah,
far, this is
that was
just
right
a
around there.
bid. It's not sure, right? Like the both of the boards have to approve this.
Yeah. People are also trying to catch Microsoft bottoms here. MSFT is what I see. I don't know why. I
So
guess they're trying
personally,
to
right, I wouldn't buy any of these mega cap like Apple and Microsoft with the run they had last year. I wouldn't want to buy them here. Like I've talked to a couple of guys who work at both the companies, and almost all they talk about is Web3 now. So I think it's just a diversion short term. So
Okay.
I
Evan, you
do
want to?
look to
Yeah.
I look to one or two of those mega cap names which didn't outperform last year. And those are the names that kind of, if I'm going that area, get me a little excited. I think Amazon is the prime example of that. For me, for
yeah.
a year or
So
so
did you
ago, like
put in Prime because of Amazon or just a coincidence?
did I put in prime? What do you mean?
Yeah, you said right. Amazon is a prime example, and Amazon
Oh
Prime.
no, that was just coincidence. Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't even realize.
Even
No, but yeah,
Facebook,
I
right?
like 3100.
I think Facebook is the cheapest stock at that valuation, and almost trades at half of the multiples of its peers. So
Yeah, but it always is. That's kind of Facebook's MO with all those problems. And hey, name change. All those problems in the past are no more, but maybe eventually that'll happen. But that's just
Uh,
Facebook's MO is trading at a deep
yeah,
valuation or at a terrible valuation because everyone thinks privacy problems. Oh, I don't want to use Facebook or whatever. But the beast behind it is as powerful as ever.
you
so
were
I
right.
know that
Over
we.
the Christmas, the holidays, Oculus hit number one out of nowhere, and that shows you how many people were gifted that right over the weekend. And Oculus is owned by Facebook too, for anyone wondering.
Real quick, Richard, I know that we only have you for about 6 more minutes. While we have you, since we'll be running for a little bit while after that, just wanted to throw a couple of names over at you to get
Sure,
charted. Okay,
sure.
awesome. So let's roll. And obviously, these are in probably they're all everything's in downtrends. So screw that. But here's one that's in an uptrend, which is FAS. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then two that are in downtrends. We'd love to hear on Affirm and Upstart, which is almost like Gerg's price target. It's $10 off.
Sure thing. So yeah, first taking a look at FAS. This is the 3X financial, I believe. And financials have been actually doing really well. They've been in uptrends, and this is one of the kind of spots of strength recently. This and kind of oil and gas names look pretty similar. So right now it's at, it looks like it failed the breakout through kind of 151.50, which is the top of the prior base. A little downside reversal here, but it was straight off the bottom. And when you get a move like where it's straight off the bottom, right? And what I mean by that is you form a base structure, you form a bottom, and then you basically rally very, very sharply all the way from the bottom of the base right to the top. You might want to expect some type of profit taking along the way, some type of shakeout handle to form. Just because of supply and demand, people who bought at the bottom are going to want to take profits. But in general, this group has been pretty strong. It's not kind of the classic growth names I like to trade, but overall, there's been some pretty good opportunities in this group. Looking at AFRM, I think that was one of the other ones you mentioned. This, like you said, in a downtrend, it's kind of crazy. That's all the way back at 73 after being such a powerful mover from those gap ups when it announced the partnerships with Amazon and all of that in earnings. And this is, yeah, like you said, it's just in a downtrend below a declining 10 SMA even, and declining 21 EMA, 50 SMA. And like you mentioned earlier, it's unlikely you're going to pick the bottom. So why not wait until it really starts to round the corner, form up a tight consolidation, break up that, and get back above all those key moving averages. So that's kind of my take on these. What was the other name that you wanted me to look at?
Upstart. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And Coin.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, Upstart similar to AFRM. This was a name I was trading pretty regularly in September through October of last year. Got some good trades on it, but then we had that gap down on earnings on very high volume, and then we lost a very short, stubby little consolidation. That low from the earnings gap down day, and from then on, it's just been a downtrend below a declining 10 SMA. 21 EMA and 50 SMA, and these growth names, when they lose that favor and basically lose the bid, can fall very, very sharply, as people are probably aware of as of this moment. And this is just stuck below the declining moving averages, and looks like it's right at the bottom of the consolidation all the way back in July of last year, down near looks like 105, 108 spot. And like I said, there might be some oversold bounces here, but I think if you bounce back into declining moving averages, that's always suspect, and it might be good for some short swing trades, but not necessarily for a longer term buy. Let this really round out things and build a long term base, and that could take years. We never know. If you look back at SQ, that's a good example of growth names where they have a 200, 300% run. And then if you look back in September of 2018, the stock went nowhere until 2020, really. So be aware that these growth names, once they start basing and no longer are in those strong uptrends above a rising 50 SMA, they can base and just kind of chop around for a lot longer than anyone thinks. So lastly, looking at coin, let's take a look at this. This is also just in a downtrend below a declining 10 SMA as of this moment, and breaking below the 10-1 from 2021 lows around 225. Doesn't look great, just in a downtrend, and we'll have to see whether it can hold all-time lows. I think that's a pretty significant level, and that low is at 208. And maybe we got to undercut of that, and then a rally back up, and then we start a longer-term basing pattern. But when it stock's in a downtrend, nobody knows how long that downtrend is going to last and how far down it will go. So I prefer to stick with stocks showing strength and, holding up well and being involved when they are in uptrends and really the tide is with me. So I think I probably have to step aside. I've got a meeting, unfortunately, but I just kind of want to say, make sure you guys are trading when the environment is right for you, basically. And if the environment isn't right, think about when you made the most money in the past. And if the current environment doesn't match that, think about whether you really have an edge, and keep focusing on managing risk and those stocks at uptrends. That's kind of my final words.
Love it. Thank you so much. If anybody's not already following Richard, one of the best follows you're going to find on here, I haven't found really anybody that puts in more time to their craft in order to contribute, to the community. He also has 44,000 followers on YouTube with some of the most amazing interviews you'll see of the top U.S. investors and so many more. He's also only 1,000 away from 69,000. So I think I've given you a lot of good reasons here to go and follow Richard. Thank you so much for coming on, Richard.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
so let's talk about coin, right? So coin, I think, will be a hell of a trade after the earnings of this quarter, right? So before the next quarter earnings, that should be in 3.5 months, they have the NFT platform coming out. And NFT platform already has over 2.3 million signups. And the monthly active users for OpenSea right now is 1/10 of that. And I think the day that goes live will be the biggest liquidity influx in the crypto and NFT space. And Coinbase will charge a percentage of all the transactions, right? So I think that might boost a lot of their numbers for the following quarter. And almost no one seems to be talking about that. So the only thing with that is, right, the data for this quarter doesn't look that great, because the month-over-month traffic data track for Coinbase is down 12% from the last quarter. So I wouldn't risk holding through this earnings, but buying after the earnings sell-off right before the NFT platform goes live can be a very good trade, in my opinion. So,
Okay.
yeah, anyone who has used OpenSea, they know the platform sucks, right? Like, OpenSea is garbage. Like over the
It's almost down, which is pretty sad.
over the weekend they raised at 11 billion, right? 11.5 billion valuation,
Yeah.
and you have like the worst front end. So glitchy, doesn't like even yesterday they were down, right, for 6 7 hours. And when you go and buy something, they give you random errors. Like even if it's already gone, just pull it off. Stop showing that. So very bad UI UX. It's very hard to use for most people. I think, right? Connect the
You
wallet. It's
you
not
on there
going.
buying
Yeah,
apes?
yeah. When you buy both, they're bright.
Gerg, you're more of like a right-click save kind of guy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't get the point, right? But I did buy some, so I don't miss out. Like, I'm not bullish on the space. I just bought some to have some exposure. If they do, like, finally pop up, right? You never know. All of them are worth 10, 20 million in a year. So I think it's worth the gamble for me. But as an investment, yeah, not for me.
yeah, I hear you. All right, Matt, I want to get you back into this. It sounds like you are kind of sitting it out, but I'm sure you're still looking. Are there any areas of strength, and also are there any areas of weakness that you think could be preyed on, or are you just still kind of standing pat? And real quick before you do go, just want to let everyone know I'll drop a map actually right now. A lot of red. Your leading red names today are Tesla, Amazon, Home Depot, Microsoft, Nvidia, all pretty far down. You're also seeing the household and personal area of the market is down. Discount stores are down. Real estate's down. The areas that are slightly green, you do have some green in healthcare. So stuff like Bristol Myers Squibb. The capital markets are holding up okay. Looks like Goldman Sachs, if you go into GS, I believe is green, still about 0.5% green. And you also do have Morgan Stanley. That's one that a lot of people were looking at. I think that one's also about 0.5% green. Oh, no, it went red. Okay. Well, those are what are factoring into FAS, which we talked about earlier. And I guess aerospace is a little bit divided. Healthcare looks pretty green to me. Lightly green, maybe about 0.5% to percent up. Banks are doing okay. So we've kind of talked about the regions that do well within this market and looking towards areas. So if you're looking towards areas of weakness today, consumer cyclical, semiconductors, communications, technology, electronics, just all very weak at the moment. Even financials are really doing pretty bad with PayPal and Visa and stuff like that. But then your strength is more like banks and capital markets. Those are really the main areas in healthcare, I guess. And for some reason, I guess like tobacco is kind of doing pretty well today, and beverages. So that's kind of just like an initial look. But I can post a screenshot of this. But Matt, what's on your radar?
Yeah, nice analysis. I'm starting to feel like the Oracle from the Matrix because lately it seems that every time we meet, Neo, I have nothing but bad news. I'm sorry about that, kid. I surely am. Because right now, this has been one of those weird times where the market is responding poorly to potential quantitative tightening, aggressive rate hikes, and of course, any type of aggressive tightening and rate hikes and a lot of other things that the market responds to. Now, I'm going to tell you, my thesis is not bearish for the long term. For the medium term, the S&P and other things are going to trade down. All the sectors are going to look bad. Semis are going to get hit the hardest this week. I'm looking for my model. Energy is going to get hardest this week. The things that were moving up the highest are going to get hit the hardest. So even though some of my kind of beacons, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America were the two that I was watching, they were opening green, still turning red a little bit. Bank of America has support at 49. Once that guy gets knocked out, I think most of the market's going to trade off today. I just posted a tweet, shared it with the space. We're entering what's called a volatility event, where we have a calculation our model does called hedge pressure, which is the net gamma balance against market maker options. We look for that particular push. And when that breaks on indices, the entire index comes down. But when that breaks on the VIX, the entire index comes down exponentially. So today is one of those days where everything is likely to come down and come down hard. There are no good picks for me. I shouted this last night when I had the least sexy comment about my play of the week, which was cash. We woke up this morning and I'm glad that was my play, and that still is my play probably through Wednesday. It's going to be pretty bad. I've been digging all morning looking for winners. I can't find a single one that actually looks like a safe Bottom scrape today. Some of my favorites like Boeing. Boeing was something I thought would be pretty okay. I think Boeing will probably hold 200. We're not going to touch it today, but I think middle of the week, some of these plays like financials are in it, and Boeing. I think so. I have Morgan, Bank of America, and Boeing are 3 I'm watching, and I think middle of the week those are going to maintain strength. I think tech and semis are going to get hit hard this week, and I think that's going to draw and pull the entire indices down. My call for overnight was 4,602 for the S&P. We ran right to that out the door, and I think we're going to fall even lower. VIX has broken through key levels today. The VIX itself, so when the volatility becomes volatile, the market becomes so illiquid, there is just nothing to catch it. This is a day that crushes dreams, breaks hearts, ruins families. So be cautious, those of you out there.
You're mad. It's not that deep yet.
It's not what?
It's not that
Ruins
deep yet.
families. The bearer of bad news.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's not that
wait,
deep
I'm sorry,
yet. Like
you're
SPY
bullish.
is even down 3% from
Dude,
all-time highs.
isn't paradise in your name? What?
I
Yeah,
know.
like-
I sound like such a bummer today. I know. I hate being the bearer of bad news.
No, Matt. When SPY is down 10% off from the highs, when it will be soon, you can say that then.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit too premature to say that.
Yeah.
Families will be destroyed, dreams will be destroyed. So
I know.
Yeah.
And I don't even get started on how I think Bitcoin's the next thing to get murdered. So I have a
what do you
whole
think about
long-term
Bitcoin?
thesis
How
about that.
low does that go?
How low is
10,000?
Bitcoin going to go?
Yeah, what do you think?
Probably as low as you think AMC is going to go. So
A negative $5?
Yeah, I have this whole thesis on how something that has finite supply can be a hedge against inflation. So that's this whole nonsense I can fight against, but not to break anybody's hearts further on Bitcoin.
But isn't
yeah.
gold kind of finite too?
Yeah.
Kinda.
I mean, we do have gold on other planets, asteroids, but even with that, right, the quantity is limited.
Just something to keep an eye on for anyone that's listening. I am having some short indicators go off. Oh, we should also definitely repeat, nothing we say here is at all financial advice. This is purely for ideation.
Nothing at all. Yeah.
Ideation purposes. If you are going to do anything, my recommendation is you take the name, you go ahead and plug it into your handy dandy Google. You then go and you look at the fundamentals. You go and you look at the technicals. You look at momentum. You look at volume, and you put together a full picture before you place any investments, short or long. The only recommendation that I would say you could take as financial advice is Matt's, which is cash. That one I think is okay.
I have this way of saying this. It's like we can't give you financial advice, investment advice. Can't tell you what to do with your money, but I can tell you what to do with your hands. This is skincare advice. Take your hands, put them under your ass, and sit on them and exfoliate your hands by just sitting on your ass, on your hands. So,
boom.
Skincare advice.
So, we also, just a couple of like short indicators that are going off. I am getting short indicators on NNOX, which probably people, if you've looked at NNOX, you've noticed that it's in quite the downtrend. I just got to pull a little bit more data on this, but I think it's an all-time low. I'm not 100% sure. It's not loading me more data. Okay, yeah, I think this is a new all-time low. For NNOX fell below, I believe it's...
what stock? I will check it for you. What's the ticker?
NNOX.
NNOX. So with NNOX, it's 1179. Yep, you're correct. New all-time low.
Yeah, so that is moving low, and people are kind of coming in on that. So this was a block. So just for anyone that's familiar, a couple things we'll talk over today. When we're talking about option flow, there's two different types typically of consolidations that will come in. You'll have spreads, or you'll have, it's not a spread, a sweep. You'll have a sweep and a block. So if you're looking at it, I personally mostly just pay attention to the sweeps unless they come in right with a block, because the block is a pre-negotiated contract, essentially, meaning that somebody could have gotten at a better price. They could have come in size. I don't typically look at it, but what I will say is, good Lord, there are some big blocks of puts coming in on NNOX this morning, totaling right now, I see almost $10 million. I think over $10 million of puts that are coming in on here. So just something to keep in mind. Also, going back to what Matt said, I will push back on having money in cash. I've been getting way more into this. So if you've been on some of my spaces, you've noticed I would crypto stake that money and I would put it in a stable coin and I would earn 10 to 20% APY on it. In the meantime, super liquid. You can get in, you can get out. That's what I would do with my money. I don't keep money in cash. I just stake it. I can do a space on that if people are interested. It's super easy. I did a space last week teaching people how to literally earn 9% APY by basically doing nothing. You literally just download an app and put your money in. But with that all being said,
quick question about that. I have a question. When you pull out money, how quickly do you get it? And is there any restrictions with how much you can pull out?
No, as soon as you pull out, you get that.
Yeah.
So I use crypto.com, right? Up to $1 million, you can stake it in seconds and get it out in seconds.
But doesn't crypto.com require you to keep it in there for 6 months or whatever? Isn't that the whole thing?
No, right? That's a good part. So they have 3 options. One is you can take it anytime. That offers you 10% a year. The next option is monthly. You log it for a month. That offers you 12%. And when you log it for 3 months, they offer you 14% APY on stable coins.
Yeah, mine there is no set. You can take it in and take it out anytime that you would like. Obviously, you're just going to earn less if you pull it out. Okay.
So what, Gav, what is teach me about that, because I don't actually play in that world, but how do they stay stable? How do they fight, liquidity and volatility problems?
So with that, right, USDC, so USDC is the better one because this one is backed by Coinbase and Circle, while Tether just puts money out from thin air. That might be the best shot of our lifetimes, but you talk about that in some other space. I think Wolf, right? You did a space, right, about Tether, I think a couple months back, right?
I did do a space on Tether a little while back. That one, yeah.
I remember that I did, yeah. I think that's the biggest count, but I only stake in USDT. No, USDC.
USDC is good. I stake USDC and UST. I stake both currently. You can just get more for UST, and I don't think that it's going to collapse, at least for another couple of years. If it was
for me, right, I don't want to take the gamble, right? I think it eventually collapses, but it's very, very hard to say when.
Yeah. But Matt, when we're in person next week, I'm happy to show you all of it.
Yeah, I'm down to learn. Okay.
So so the platforms, what they do was they act like banks. They give out the loans at higher rates, and they keep the difference. And some other instance, they use that money in pools, right, to provide liquidity, and you get every percentage of the trade, and the platform pays you at the end of that. So basically, you're market making for crypto.
Yeah, I think it's a really, and after we do this, I just want to cut this and go to Miguel, but it is, I think, a really difficult concept for most people to comprehend because they've been kind of sold this lie for their whole lives where they are being told, like, hey, you should accept 0.5% on cash. You should accept 1% on cash. And they're also being sold I think it's kind of a lie that, like, you should, put your money into something that is a risky machine and accept 9% per year and be happy with that, and a majority of people don't do better than that. And they're kind of being told, like, nobody, like, the reason that you should take 0.5% from the bank is nobody's like paying high amounts for loans, and that's just not true. There is a ton of people on the internet who are very desperate for liquidity. 80% of that demand, I would say, is probably high yield traders who are just looking for arbitrage opportunities and other stuff like that. And they are very much willing to pay super high APYs, much higher than 10, 20, 30% in order to borrow money on short amounts of time. So it does exist. The liquidity is there. You can take advantage of it by being the bank. It's kind of like when you're buying and selling options. For anyone that's familiar with the covered call strategy, a lot of people use that to bring in an extra, 10, 20, 30% per year. It's great, right? Because you're being the casino, you're being the house where you are saying, instead of buying this risky asset, I'm going to sell it to somebody else and take the risk averse side to it, typically, if you're doing your research correctly. And it's the same thing here where it's saying, instead of me, buying and being the investor that's going to hold the currency, hold the coin, whatever it is, I'm going to be the bank and I'm going to put it into liquidity pool and lend it out to others and then take that APY. You're just getting a much higher APY because it's all decentralized. It's a much easier system to borrow for. People do not like borrowing from banks, to be honest. It's a very tedious process. And if you're going to do it in the US, you probably have to have like a social security and a bunch of other stuff that a lot of people who are borrowing worldwide don't have. So this makes it a lot easier for people to come in with size, get in, get out. It just makes life pretty simple. Gert, you want to do any last comment, and then we're going to go to Miguel?
So with that, right, so like Wolf said, a lot of platforms offer I think, who did you have last week on your platform, on your spaces?
I had Outlet Finance.
And how much are they offering? I think they do all the work, right? You said.
Yeah, they do all the work for you. You don't have to do any swaps, any fees, anything. Right now they offer 9%, but they're moving to 15% in a month and a half.
So personally, I have never used them, and I can't vouch for them. But I think 15% sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using them for over a year. I also have had a number of Zoom calls with the CEO and founder. I've gone through their pitch decks pretty religiously. I know that they're raising a lot of capital right now. I also know that they're hiring. There are certain things when you're looking at companies that just stand out to me. Having worked at a startup for years, I can see what is a healthy attribute versus non-healthy. Mass hiring, very healthy. Like that is a good thing to see when people are going out and saying, "I'm going to triple the size of our workforce." People that are raising, upwards of $10 million from reputable investors, that makes me feel good. Somebody probably did due diligence into them. A CEO that's willing to come on a public call and answer questions from an audience, I like that. So those are all things that were lining up for me. You can choose your own service, but I'm happy to do more spaces on this type of stuff. But let's move back to stocks real quick. Miguel, you joined us today from Wiz Day Trader. You've been reaching out to me and we've been chatting. So great to have you on. What are you looking at today in the market? What opportunities are you seeing?
Hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm at Wiz Day Trader. This is my personal account where I talk about what I'm trading and what I'm looking at in the market and what I'm kind of doing for clients because I manage private clients. And then in addition, I have a separate account called SX Trading, a company I started during the pandemic where I tweet out charts and other stuff and not like personal positions. So what I do and how I approach the market is I don't care what the media says. I don't care what you guys have to say sometimes, although I do because I'm interested. But the point is, all I really care about is price. So what is price telling me? So before we came into this year, right? Actually, it was the last call that you guys had. I remember, and it was on the 1220, right? We were like talking about when are we going to get this Santa rally, and everyone was really bearish on that call, which was really interesting. So we had like a gap down day, and I was looking at the charts and I was like, well, the SPY is at the 100 SMA, and it's a moving average, right? I do technical analysis, right? So I look at the MACD, stochastics, RSI. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go on my website, on my blog. I have some blogs that talk about how I set up my charts, what indicators I look at, right? And so you guys were kind of bearish, and I was like, I don't really see it really bad because you have like energy hitting the 200 SMA. So I started getting bullish, right? And ultimately, my year-end target for the market, or I had 3 targets that got met this year, and my last one was 4,800, and actually we achieved that I think just before the new year on the SPX. So I was like, well, my target's getting hit. I move my positions, I sell my positions when my targets get hit, and I'm happy, right? Tesla this year, I had 1,000% gain from the pandemic lows, right? I had called, like I had congratulated that guy that Elon keeps on taunting. David Einhorn, in a tweet as like a joke. And I was like, congratulations on your shorts. And that was the ultimate bottom in Tesla. And I was up 1,000%, when that was rallying. I wanted to be taking gains, and, I had bought some calls on 11:15, like 1,400 calls. And then Dan Ives came out with a call that's going to 1,400 too. So like, when you see these analysts start upgrading, you want to start selling these positions because they're when I have my expectations and I think that something's going to go up, and then the street and other people start getting excited, I'm like, I don't really like it as much. But I'm kind of interested. The SPY is curious right here. I think if we could touch the lower Bollinger Band on the daily chart and maybe get a bounce, because the gap from what I was talking about on 1220, that the high is 455.40. I wouldn't mind taking a potential trade at that, right, because of the Bollinger Band. And a Bollinger's Band is basically you just see when the market gets overstretched or too much to the upside or the downside, or maybe we're in between a position and we're not really going anywhere. I'm short Apple, which I told you about. When we had the news come out that it hit 3 trillion, I think that was the perfect time to short. You can see on my Essex trading account, I have a chart, and there are it's a mathematical concept called Fibonacci that I'm sure some people are aware of. It's just basically ancient math, and it works in the market, and it's fantastic. And Apple hit the 138.2% Fibonacci retracement, from its 200 SMA on 12/24/2018, and we were taking profits. Apple hits 3 trillion market cap. Fantastic for them. But what does that mean for us as market participants? We want to be selling, and ultimately I could be taking a hedge against my position. Say I'm, I have a lot of Apple stock. I'm heavily invested in the company, and my kids have it. And I'm like, hey, maybe I want to take a position. I'm going to take some profits, right? Apple hits 3 trillion. That's great for them. Let's take profits. But what am I doing as an investor, as a trader, right? And so what it's an interesting spot here for Apple, right? So if I'm short, right, for a trade off of that news, right, which was around January 3rd, I'm going to be looking at 167.46. So I just told you about the SPY, and it sort of correlates with this 167.46. So I'd be taking maybe, some short-term profits. But, this is an interesting setup we have on Apple because it's a potential top, right? It's called like a M for murder. When you have a W for a bottom, M for murder is when the stock goes up and tests its high, right? Which was a week of 12/13, and then we had 1/3 last week. And so if we break below 167.46, I'm going to be getting pretty bearish on the market, to be honest. I know Matt was talking about cash, but I want to start shorting some positions, to be honest. Banks was starting to look good, but this might be a failed breakout, to be honest. Below $41, I'm getting cautious of banks, right? We have the MACD is diverging negatively, which I don't really like. And, we held that 200 SMA on that day that you were talking, again, that I was telling you guys you were pretty bearish. But, I was saying, you probably want to take profits as far as risk and reward in 46.80, because that's the previous high for the banks here. But it'll be interesting. I mean, the banks have been outperforming because of rates, which is kind of interesting. I'm short ARC, too. Obviously, I think a lot of people, the fund has just not been great, but I don't really care whether they're doing this, that, and the other. All I care about is price, ultimately. And I think ARC goes to 70.25. It tests the lower Bollinger Band on the monthly chart, which coincides with the 50 SMA, because it failed previous SMAs like the 20 SMA. And for other people who don't know, SMA just means smooth moving average, right? And it's an average based on price. So it's just a mathematical concept. And if you want to learn more about that stuff, a lot of where I learned this is the CMT Chartered Market Technicians. I have a book. I was going to take the exam. I didn't end up taking the exam because I got exposed to someone that had COVID. So I haven't taken it yet, but reading the book and that stuff is really great. So, I think ARC, I think the ETF goes to 70.25 ultimately. And then that's
17 or 70?
What's that?
What number? 70, 17?
70.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
That's the 61.8% retrace of this monthly chart, right? So you can do a Fibonacci, right? What I do is I do this Fibonacci, right? And I measure the move from the high to the lows, and that's on a monthly chart. And then, it also coincides with the lower Bollinger Band and the 50 SMA in the monthly chart, which is probably somewhere I would want to be getting long, right? As far as Tesla too, I do like Tesla here, which is kind of interesting. It's on, as far as the daily chart, it's got the 61.8% retrace is 10/12/55. The MACD is crossed over, which is a little concerning, and it's below some moving averages. But if it can hold here, I kind of like it for a trade. It's kind of got this bull flag it's setting up, and it's been one of the outperformers. If you look at Microsoft, Microsoft is broken down, which is a little concerning. So a lot of these high-tech flyers, right? I was selling Microsoft, actually, last year around 345. We were taking profits for clients, and this is a very bearish pattern that Microsoft has on it, and that's really concerning. A lot of people came in bullish at the beginning of the year because we had a rally in the market for the Santa rally, and that's fine, that's okay. But I don't really care about all those statistics. I just want to look at price and approach the market objectively and be disciplined, because I think that's ultimately the arbiter of truth. Everyone has a position in the market, and all it is human behavior, right? So, if I have a price and you have a price, well, I'm looking to sell it higher than you are. But if it doesn't go up that high, then I have to get out eventually. What I really like is I love crypto here. I think the sentiment is really bad. I was shorting Ethereum or doing it as a hedge, but I like mine and stake and do all that stuff. But the Ethereum is hitting the 38.2% retracement here. And as far as, I could take off a hedge here for some profits, 27, it failed the 37, it failed the 23.6% retracement, which was support. We saw that, it kind of came down, tested that, created a bear flag, and came down. So, that's not good for the, Ethereum, but, we said, okay, well, below this level, we'll think about it. And so we shorted that, and we're taking profits here. We're taking some short-term profits, 30.35 is the 38.2% retracement. The RSI now is at 27, which is generally not good, right? You don't want that RSI. You generally want it over 30. But if I'm short or I have a hedge for my long position, I don't mind taking profits here, right? I also think, the monthly didn't do like a reversal, but the last monthly candle. So if you hear what I'm talking about, candlesticks are just Japanese candlesticks that measure price from high to low, based on whatever time frame you're looking at, high, low, close, and open. So last month you had like a bearish engulfing versus the previous month of November, and that was bearish, right? People are selling constantly, and Vitalik is a $1 billion guy. So when the news like that comes out, you want to be selling, and I'm getting a bunch of spam, NFTs, like NFTs, this, that, the other. It's crazy on Instagram. And I'm like, this is kind of like getting out of hand. So you kind of like look at price and you coincide with what's going on by market behavior, and you make decisions on that. And now I'm like, okay, I'd like Ethereum here for a trade. I'd be long above 30.42, and I think I got some Ethereum here, and I like Bitcoin here too, which is really interesting. Bitcoin is, if we stay above 40,000, I think it's pretty cool right here. I think it's really interesting. We've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's so I do Elliott wave analysis in addition, right? You got a 5 wave down here, and on the daily chart. I was getting bearish before this, as I said, if Bitcoin doesn't hold that 200 SMA, right, which was right around 47,972, right, that's not good for Bitcoin. And ultimately, what the 200 SMA is, it's like a long-term moving average that a lot of market participants look at, right? So if you have a long-term strategy on Bitcoin, that's something that's concerning, in the longer term. But for here, it's hitting the 38.2% retracement, which is 41,982.90, right? Of the 2018 lows, right? So I don't want to be, I'm looking to put on a position here. I'm hesitant, right? But, I'm looking at the MACD, and the MACD could diverge positively here. We got some of the bars, and it's like, well, the bar is like the histogram bar is like kind of at the apex of the histogram, generally where, some of the price turns around. So I'll be looking at that, right? But I take it on for a trade. And look, we always stay disciplined, right? We put on a trade, we always put our stops in, right? And if it goes against us, it goes against us, right? And if we want to, put, another position on because we got stopped out of our position, we could do that too. But, that's also why I started SX trading, is because I wanted people to understand, like, your position should be green all the time, right? If you get up in a position and it's red, you should probably just get out of it, right? Because there's a lot of mental capital that you lose by not being in a green position, and other things like that, right? It's an emotional, physical capital, and then you're in something that ultimately continues to go down. So you just want to be careful when you do that, right? So you put your stops in, and you be disciplined, right? Like any good investor or trader should be. I also like bonds here, which is kind of interesting. I think it's been pretty bearish. There were a lot of puts that were bought previously. I know I was looking at it around 12.7. We got that bounce up to 20 SMA. And then I was like, all right, traded for some options because I was curious. I was like, oh, maybe the market, based on that action before, might go down. But, bonds is going to hit. But I like it here. The RSI on the daily chart, so the 20-year Treasury bond for TLT is right around 30. And, those people that are short probably taking some profits here. So, and like considering the market is coming down, you might want to, buy some bonds. So that's kind of a tell maybe for the market overall. And then something else I look at is HYG. This is something else that, I did not want to be long the market when high yield corporate bonds could not hold that 200 SMA on the daily chart. I mean, it's just, that was really concerning to me, and that failed to hold on 12.27, right? And these are bonds that corporations are buying. So if these are prices that are going down, then that's a problem. So we hit the 61.8% retracement on the daily chart, which was right around the 200 SMA. So we got an ABC bounce, this is what it's called, after a 5-way pullback. And, it just, you look at this, and it told you what was happening in November too. And it just pulled back, and that's really concerning. But, we're touching those lows again right here. So maybe we'll get a bounce here again. So, you see how this coincides. Apple hitting a spot. The SPY is hitting a spot. HYG is hitting a spot. So these things coincide for a reason, And now, if it can't hold this is the weekly 200 SMA. If it breaks down below that, that's really concerning to me and for the overall market. And then, if I want to look at a longer term, I'll zoom out on my Fibonacci here.
Let's wrap up on this one. Just going to keep it rolling.
Sure. I'm just trying to tell you, so when I look at everything, if I look at something, I want to have like an overall thesis of why I'm looking at something. And these all the charts coincide together. So I developed my thesis based off of that. So a longer term, if we start breaking down here big, then $80 on HYG is a potential spot.